My son died during an alleged business trip. At the funeral, my daughter-in-law sent me a message. I won't attend. Something came up. Take care. 2 hours later, the family gardener posted a photo on a plane. My daughter-in-law was tagged in the post. The next day, the truth left me pale. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this and comment the city you're watching from. My name is Austin, and I'm 65 years old. 3 days ago, I buried my only son, Marcus. Today, I discovered that everything I thought I knew about his death was a lie. The funeral home smelled of lilies and disinfectant, that sterile scent that follows death everywhere it goes. I stood beside Marcus's casket, my hands shaking as I adjusted his tie one last time. He looked peaceful, younger somehow, like the boy who used to fall asleep in my lap, watching baseball games. The heart attack had taken him at 38, sudden and merciless. People kept coming up to me, offering condolences, sharing memories, but there was one person noticeably absent, Sarah, his wife of 8 years. "Where's Sarah?" my neighbor Helen asked, scanning the crowded room. "I haven't seen her all morning." I pulled out my phone and checked for messages. Nothing. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. The last time we'd spoken was 2 days ago when she'd seemed distant, distracted. She'd mentioned something about tying up loose ends from Marcus's business trip, but I hadn't thought much of it then. Around 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. "Austin, I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to make it to the service. Had an unexpected situation come up that I need to handle immediately. Please understand. Take care of yourself." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times. An unexpected situation? Her husband was being buried today. What could possibly be more important than saying goodbye to Marcus? I showed the message to Helen, who frowned deeply. "That doesn't sound right, Austin. What kind of situation could keep a wife from her husband's funeral?" I didn't know what to say. Sarah had always been somewhat aloof with my side of the family, but this felt different, cold even. I tried calling her again, but once more it went to voicemail. The service continued without her. I gave the eulogy alone, talking about Marcus's dedication to his work, his love for hiking, the way he could fix anything with his hands. But the whole time, I kept glancing toward the back of the room, hoping Sarah would walk through those doors. She never did. After the burial, I went back to my house feeling emptier than I'd ever felt in my life. Marcus had been my world since his mother died 12 years ago. Now he was gone, and his own wife couldn't even be bothered to show up for his funeral. I was sitting in my kitchen, still in my black suit, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text message. It was a notification from Instagram. Diego, the landscaper who'd been working on Marcus and Sarah's yard for the past 2 years, had posted a new photo. I don't usually pay attention to social media, but something made me click on it. The photo showed the inside of an airplane, with Diego grinning at the camera, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and holding what looked like a cocktail. The caption read, "Finally taking that vacation. Thanks to my generous employers for the surprise trip." But what made my blood run cold was the tag at the bottom of the photo. Sarah was tagged in the location. En route to Maui. I stared at the screen, my hands beginning to tremble again. Sarah was on a plane to Hawaii while I was burying our son with our landscaper. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe she'd needed to get away, to grieve privately. Maybe Diego had just happened to be on the same flight. But deep down, I knew those explanations didn't hold water. I called Marcus's best friend, Jake, who had spoken at the service. "Jake, did Marcus mention anything to you about Sarah lately? Anything that seemed off?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Austin, I didn't want to say anything today, but Marcus had been acting strange the past few weeks. He seemed worried about something. He even asked me if I knew any good divorce lawyers." My heart sank. "Divorce lawyers?" "Yeah. He said he'd discovered something about Sarah that changed everything, but he wouldn't tell me what. He said he was going to confront her when he got back from his business trip." I hung up the phone and sat in silence. Marcus had been planning to confront Sarah about something, and now he was dead from a sudden heart attack. Sarah was on a plane to Hawaii with another man instead of attending his funeral. Something wasn't right. Something was very, very wrong. I went to Marcus's house that evening using the spare key he'd given me years ago. The place felt hollow, untouched. Sarah had supposedly been there just yesterday, gathering things for the funeral, but it looked like she'd barely been home at all. I walked through their bedroom looking for any sign of what Marcus might have discovered. In his dresser drawer, beneath some old business cards, I found a small notebook. Most of the pages were blank, but there were a few entries in Marcus's handwriting from the past month. March 15th, checked the accounts again, still doesn't add up. March 20th, found the receipts, she's been lying about where the money goes. March 24th, called the bank. They confirmed my suspicions. My hands were shaking as I read the last entry, dated just 4 days before his death. I have to end this. I can't let her destroy everything Dad worked for, too. Everything Dad worked for? What did that mean? I heard a car door slam outside and quickly put the notebook back. Through the window, I saw Sarah's sister Emily walking up the driveway. I met her at the front door. "Austin," she said, looking surprised to see me. "I was just coming to check on the house. Sarah asked me to pick up a few things." "Where is Sarah, Emily? Why wasn't she at the funeral?" Emily's face flushed red. "She's going through a really difficult time right now. Sometimes people grieve differently. She's in Hawaii with the landscaper." Emily's expression changed, caught off guard. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I saw the photo, Emily. She's on vacation while we buried Marcus." Emily looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "Austin, there are things about Marcus and Sarah's marriage that you don't understand." "Then help me understand." She was quiet for a long moment, then shook her head. "It's not my place to say, but Sarah isn't the villain you think she is." She pushed past me into the house, gathered a few items, and left without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the notebook, about Marcus's fear that Sarah would destroy everything I'd worked for. What had she been doing with their money? And why had Marcus felt the need to protect my assets? I'd built a modest but comfortable life through 40 years of work as an electrician. I owned my house outright, had a decent retirement fund, and had always planned to leave everything to Marcus when I died. But if Marcus had been worried about Sarah getting her hands on my money, the thought made me sick. Had my son died trying to protect me from his own wife? As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one question kept echoing in my mind. If Sarah had discovered that Marcus was planning to divorce her, what lengths would she have gone to stop him? The next morning, I drove straight to Diego's house. I'd found his address and Marcus's phone contacts, and I needed answers. The small duplex looked empty, but I knocked anyway. No response. His neighbor, an elderly woman watering her flowers, looked over at me. "You looking for Diego?" "He left yesterday morning with 2 big suitcases. Said he was going on vacation." "Did he mention when he'd be back?" She shrugged. "Didn't say, but he looked pretty excited about it. Had a big grin on his face when he loaded up that Uber." I thanked her and drove home, my mind racing. Diego had left for vacation the same day as Marcus's funeral. The same day Sarah couldn't attend because of her unexpected situation. I needed more information, so I called Marcus's office. His secretary, Mrs. Chen, answered on the second ring. "Mr. Austin, I'm so sorry for your loss. Marcus was such a good man." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I have a question about his last business trip. Where exactly did he go?" There was a pause. "Business trip? Mr. Austin, Marcus didn't have any business trips scheduled. He'd actually taken time off that week to handle some personal matters." My heart stopped. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. He specifically requested the time off about 2 weeks ago. Said he had some important family issues to resolve." I hung up, feeling dizzy. Sarah had told everyone that Marcus died of a heart attack while on a business trip. But he wasn't on a business trip at all. He'd taken time off to handle personal matters, probably to confront her about whatever he'd discovered. I went back to Marcus's house, this time with a purpose. I searched more thoroughly, looking through papers, checking his computer, going through every drawer. In his home office, I found a file folder hidden behind some books. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts dating back 6 months. What I saw made my stomach turn. Sarah had been systematically draining their joint accounts. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there. But in recent months, the withdrawals had gotten larger, $3,000 from their savings, $5,000 from their checking, $8,000 from Marcus's business account. The receipts told an even more disturbing story. Expensive jewelry, designer clothes, spa treatments, fancy dinners, all charged to their accounts, but none of them from places Marcus would have been. The dates showed she'd been spending money while telling Marcus she was visiting her sick mother in Phoenix. But the most damning evidence was a receipt dated 3 weeks before Marcus's death. Sarah had withdrawn $15,000 in cash from their joint savings account, the same day Marcus had written in his notebook about calling the bank. I sat back in his desk chair, feeling sick. My son had discovered that his wife was stealing from him, and he'd taken time off work to confront her about it. Instead of a business trip, he'd been planning to end his marriage. My phone rang, startling me. It was an unknown number. Hello? Is this Austin Mills? The voice was young, nervous. Yes, who's this? This is Tyler. I work at First National Bank. I was Marcus's account manager. I heard about what happened and I wanted to offer my condolences. Thank you, Tyler. Actually, sir, there's something else. Marcus had scheduled an appointment with me for the day after he died. He wanted to discuss separating his accounts from his wife's and removing her access to everything. He seemed really concerned about protecting his assets. The pieces were falling into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. Tyler, did Marcus mention why he wanted to separate the accounts? He said he'd discovered some unauthorized transactions and was worried about further financial damage. He also asked about setting up a trust to protect your inheritance, sir. He was very concerned that Mrs. Mills might try to claim part of your estate if something happened to him. What? After I hung up, I sat in Marcus's office for a long time, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. My son had discovered that Sarah was stealing from him. He'd tried to protect both his assets and mine, and he died before he could complete the process. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but Marcus was young, healthy, and had no history of heart problems. The timing was too convenient. My phone buzzed with another Instagram notification. This time it was a photo of Sarah and Diego at what looked like a beachside restaurant, both of them laughing and raising tropical drinks. Sarah was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with Marcus's money. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to grab happiness when life gives you a second chance. New beginnings." She was calling her husband's death a new beginning. I screenshot the photo and saved it to my phone. Then I called the police. "I'd like to speak to someone about my son's death," I told the dispatcher. "I think there might be more to it than we originally thought." Detective Rodriguez met me at the station an hour later. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Mills, I understand you have concerns about your son's death. Can you tell me what's brought this on?" I laid out everything I'd discovered: the missing money, the fake business trip, Sarah's absence from the funeral, the vacation photos. Detective Rodriguez listened carefully, taking notes. "The death certificate lists the cause as cardiac arrest," she said when I finished. "Was there an autopsy?" "No," Sarah said it wasn't necessary since the cause was obvious. Detective Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "She made that decision?" "Yes." She said Marcus wouldn't have wanted his body disturbed, and I was too grief-stricken to think clearly. "Mr. Mills, I have to ask, do you think your daughter-in-law might have harmed your son?" The question hung in the air between us. Saying it out loud would make it real, would mean admitting that the woman Marcus had loved and trusted might have killed him. "I don't know," I said finally, "but I think we need to find out." Detective Rodriguez nodded. "I'll need to see all the financial documents you found, and we'll need to speak with Mrs. Mills when she returns from her trip. What if she doesn't come back? Then we'll go get her." As I drove home from the police station, my phone rang. It was Sarah. "Austin," her voice was cheerful, relaxed. "I heard you've been asking questions about me." My blood ran cold. "Sarah, where are you?" "I'm somewhere beautiful, Austin. Somewhere Marcus and I always dreamed of visiting together. It's just a shame he couldn't make it." The casual cruelty in her voice made me grip the steering wheel tighter. "You should have been at his funeral." "Funerals are for the living, Austin. Marcus is gone. I have to think about my future now." "What about his money, Sarah? What about all the cash you've been taking from your accounts?" There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice had lost all pretense of warmth. "I don't know what you think you've discovered, but you're playing a dangerous game, old man. Marcus died of a heart attack. End of story. And if you keep spreading lies about me, you might find yourself having some health problems too. The line went dead. Sarah's threat echoed in my mind for days. The casual way she'd mentioned me having health problems sent chills down my spine. But I wasn't going to back down, not when my son's death might have been murder. Detective Rodriguez called me 3 days later. "Mr. Mills, we've been digging into your daughter-in-law's background. What we found is disturbing." I met her at the station again, this time accompanied by Detective Harrison, a tall man with graying temples who specialized in financial crimes. "Sarah Mills has been very busy," Detective Harrison began, spreading documents across the table. "In the past 18 months, she's drained approximately $67,000 from various accounts she shared with your son." The number hit me like a physical blow, $67,000. "But that's not the worst part," Detective Rodriguez continued. "We've discovered that Sarah has been using multiple credit cards in Marcus's name, cards he never applied for. She showed me credit applications with Marcus's forged signature. The writing looked similar to his, but something about the letter formations was off. I'd seen Marcus's handwriting thousands of times. This wasn't quite right. She's accumulated over $43,000 in debt using these fraudulent cards," Detective Harrison said. "Your son likely had no idea these accounts even existed." I felt sick. "So she was stealing from him and destroying his credit at the same time." "It gets worse. We found evidence that she'd been planning this for over a year. She opened a separate bank account in Nevada 6 months ago and has been transferring money there regularly. The account currently has $89,000 in it." The room spun around me. Marcus had been working 2 jobs to save money for the house they'd been planning to buy. He'd been skipping lunches, driving an old car, wearing the same clothes for years. Meanwhile, his wife had been systematically robbing him blind. "There's something else," Detective Rodriguez said gently. "We've been tracking Sarah's movements through her credit card usage. The day Marcus died, she wasn't at home like she claimed. She was at a hotel 30 miles away with Diego Hernandez, the landscaper." Yes, they checked in 2 days before Marcus's death and didn't check out until the day after his funeral. The hotel staff remembers them because they seemed to be celebrating something. My hands clenched into fists. While I was planning my son's funeral, Sarah was in a hotel room with another man celebrating. "But here's what really concerns us," Detective Harrison continued. "We found evidence that Sarah had been researching heart medications online. Specifically, she'd been looking into drugs that could cause cardiac arrest in healthy young men." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. "You think she poisoned him?" "We think it's a strong possibility. We've requested an exhumation order so we can perform a proper autopsy. Given the suspicious circumstances and the financial motive, a judge has agreed to expedite the process." I sat in stunned silence. My son hadn't just been robbed, he'd been murdered, and by the woman he'd trusted most in the world. "There's more," Detective Rodriguez said. "We've been in contact with law enforcement in Hawaii. Sarah and Diego are staying at the Grand Wailea Resort under assumed names, but hotel security cameras have confirmed their presence. They've been living very extravagantly, expensive dinners, spa treatments, shopping sprees, with Marcus's money." With Marcus's money. Detective Harrison leaned forward. "Mr. Mills, we believe Sarah discovered that Marcus was planning to divorce her and cut off her access to his assets. She had 2 choices: lose everything in a divorce or eliminate Marcus and inherit as his widow. She chose murder. We believe so, and based on what we've uncovered, this wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated, calculated murder for financial gain." That afternoon, I went to Marcus's grave for the first time since the funeral. I stood there looking at the fresh headstone, feeling a rage so deep it frightened me. "I'm sorry, son," I whispered. "I should have seen what she was doing to you. I should have protected you." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I could almost hear Marcus's voice telling me it wasn't my fault. But it felt like my fault. I was his father. I should have known. My phone rang. It was my lawyer, Robert Kim, who'd handled my will and estate planning for years. "Austin, you need to come to my office immediately. Something's happened." I drove straight there, my mind racing with possibilities. Robert's face was grim when I arrived. "Austin, Sarah came to see me 2 weeks ago. She wanted to discuss Marcus's inheritance and your estate planning." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing specific, of course, but she was asking very detailed questions about how inheritance laws work when there are no children involved. She wanted to know if a spouse would inherit everything if something happened to both you and Marcus." My blood turned to ice. "Both of us?" She was very interested in the mechanics of inherited wealth. Specifically, she wanted to know what would happen to your assets if Marcus predeceased you, but she was still considered your next of kin through marriage. I sank into the chair across from his desk. She was planning to kill me too. I can't prove that, but her questions were very concerning in hindsight. She also asked about life insurance policies and whether beneficiaries could collect immediately upon death or if there were waiting periods. The full scope of Sarah's plan was becoming clear. She hadn't just murdered Marcus for his money. She'd been planning to murder me too. As Marcus's widow, she would have inherited his assets. And if something then happened to me, she would have been considered my closest family member through marriage. "Robert, I need to change my will immediately. Sarah cannot inherit anything from me." "I've already prepared new documents," he said, pulling out a thick folder. "Given the circumstances, I think it's wise to remove her completely and designate alternative beneficiaries." As we went through the paperwork, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, old man. Some graves are better left undisturbed." I showed the message to Robert, whose face went pale. "Austin, I think you need police protection." I called Detective Rodriguez immediately. "She's threatening me again. We're working on extradition papers to bring her back from Hawaii. In the meantime, I'm arranging for patrol cars to drive by your house regularly. Don't go anywhere alone, and keep your doors locked." That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. The wind in the trees, the house settling, cars passing on the street. I kept thinking about Marcus's final days, imagining how he must have felt when he discovered Sarah's betrayal. Had he confronted her? Had she poisoned him during that confrontation? The next morning brought news that changed everything. Detective Rodriguez called at 7 a.m. "Austin, we have the preliminary autopsy results." My heart pounded. "What did you find?" Marcus was poisoned. Specifically, he was given a massive dose of digitalis, a heart medication that's deadly in large quantities. In a healthy person, it causes immediate cardiac arrest. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. So it was murder. It was definitely murder. The levels in his system were 15 times higher than any therapeutic dose. Someone deliberately gave him a lethal amount. "Sarah, we're issuing an arrest warrant immediately. The Hawaiian authorities will pick her up today." I hung up and sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall. My son had been murdered, poisoned by his own wife while she celebrated with her lover in a hotel room. But there was something else bothering me, something Detective Rodriguez had said that didn't quite fit. If Sarah had given Marcus a massive dose of digitalis, where had she gotten it, and how had she administered it without him knowing? The answer came to me slowly, horribly. Marcus had been taking vitamins every morning for the past year. Sarah had insisted on it, saying she wanted him to stay healthy. She'd been the one buying them, preparing his daily dose. She'd been poisoning him slowly, building up to the final lethal dose. My son hadn't just been murdered. He'd been tortured, slowly weakened over months before the killing blow. As this realization sank in, my phone rang again. This time, it was Sarah herself. "Hello, Austin." Sarah's voice was different now, cold, calculating, stripped of any pretense of grief or innocence. "The police know what you did, Sarah. They found the digitalis in Marcus's system." She laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Did they? How interesting. But proving I gave it to him is an entirely different matter, isn't it? They'll figure it out. They know about the money you stole, the credit cards, everything." "Money?" Her tone was mocking. "Marcus was my husband. I had every right to access our accounts. As for credit cards, well, spouses apply for things all the time. Very hard to prove I forged anything." The casual way she dismissed her crimes made my stomach turn. "You murdered him, Sarah. You poisoned your own husband." "I didn't murder anyone, Austin. Marcus had a heart attack. very sad, very sudden, but these things happen, especially to men under stress. But what stress? The stress of discovering you were robbing him blind? There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was sharper. Marcus was weak. He couldn't handle the truth about what a real marriage requires. I needed financial security, and he was too selfish to provide it willingly. So you decided to take it by force. I decided to take what was rightfully mine. Do you have any idea what it's like being married to a man who counts every penny, who questions every purchase, who makes you feel guilty for wanting nice things? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. She was actually justifying murder because Marcus had been careful with money. He loved you, Sarah. He worked 2 jobs to provide for you. He loved his precious savings account more than he loved me. Do you know he actually suggested I get a job when I mentioned wanting to redecorate the living room? A job! Like I was some common working woman. The entitlement in her voice was staggering. Marcus had worked himself to exhaustion while she sat at home spending his money, and she felt wronged because he'd suggested she contribute. You killed him for money. I liberated myself from a suffocating marriage. Marcus was never going to give me the life I deserved. So I took control of my own destiny. And Diego? How does he fit into your destiny? Another laugh, this one more genuine. Diego understands what I need. He appreciates me, and he's much more accommodating when it comes to how money should be spent. You mean he's willing to help you spend Marcus's money? I mean, he knows how to treat a woman properly, something your son never learned. The callousness was breathtaking. She spoke about Marcus like he was nothing more than an inconvenience she'd disposed of. The police will extradite you, Sarah. You can't run forever. Extradite me for what? Having a vacation after my husband's tragic death? Using money from accounts I had legal access to? You're going to have to do better than that. He was right, and we both knew it. Without proof that she'd administered the digitalis, the case against her would be largely circumstantial. Yes, she'd stolen money, but that was a separate crime from murder. We'll find the proof, I said. Good luck with that. But Austin, let me give you some advice. Drop this crusade of yours. Accept that Marcus is gone and move on with your life, because if you keep causing problems for me, you might find yourself joining him. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you helpful guidance. Heart attacks run in families, don't they? And men your age are so vulnerable to stress. It would be terrible if grief over your son's death led to your own health problems. The line went dead. I sat there shaking, not from fear, but from rage. This woman had murdered my son and was now threatening to do the same to me. She thought she was untouchable, protected by the legal technicalities that made murder so hard to prove, but she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated me. I called Detective Rodriguez and told her about the conversation. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. She essentially admitted to killing Marcus. Unfortunately, what she said in that phone call wouldn't be admissible in court. She was careful not to actually confess to anything specific. So she gets away with it? Not if I can help it. We're still building the case. The autopsy results are solid evidence of murder, and we're working on connecting Sarah to the source of the digitalis. 2 days later, Detective Rodriguez called with an update. We found something. A month before Marcus's death, Sarah purchased a large quantity of foxglove seeds online. Foxglove is the natural source of digitalis. She grew her own poison. Looks like it. We found receipts for gardening supplies, including a small greenhouse she had installed behind your son's house. The seller remembers her because she asked very specific questions about processing foxglove for medicinal purposes. This was the break we needed. Physical evidence connecting Sarah to the murder weapon. We've also traced the vitamins Marcus was taking. Sarah ordered them from a specialty company that sells empty capsules you can fill yourself. She was definitely adding something to his daily supplements. How long was she poisoning him? Based on the purchasing records, probably about 3 months. Small doses initially, then increasing amounts as she built up to the final lethal dose. The image of my son slowly being poisoned day by day, trusting his wife to take care of his health while she methodically destroyed it, made me sick with rage. When will you arrest her? Hawaiian authorities picked her up an hour ago. She's being held pending extradition. We should have her back here within the week. That evening, I finally felt like I could breathe again. Sarah would face justice for what she'd done to Marcus. But my relief was short-lived. My phone rang at midnight. It was Detective Rodriguez, and she sounded shaken. "Austin, there's been a development. Sarah made bail." "What? How is that possible?" "Someone posted $500,000 bail for her. We don't know who yet, but she was released an hour ago." My blood turned to ice. "Where is she now?" "We don't know. She was supposed to surrender her passport and check in with local authorities, but she missed her first check-in. We think she's fled. I locked every door and window in my house, but I knew it wouldn't matter. If Sarah was desperate enough to run, she was desperate enough to do anything. And I was the only person who could connect all the pieces of her crime." The next morning, I found my car's brake lines had been cut. Detective Rodriguez arrived within minutes of my call, along with a team of crime scene investigators. They photographed everything, took samples, dusted for fingerprints. "This was professional work," one of the investigators told Detective Rodriguez. "Clean cuts, designed to cause brake failure at high speed. Someone wanted this to look like an accident." "Sarah couldn't have done this herself," I said. "She doesn't know anything about cars." "No, but Diego Hernandez worked as a mechanic before he became a landscaper. And guess what? He never returned to Hawaii. He disappeared the same day Sarah was arrested. They were working together, and now they were both hunting me. The woman who'd murdered my son was trying to finish the job by killing me too." "We're putting you in protective custody," Detective Rodriguez said. "This has gone beyond a murder investigation. You're in immediate danger." As they escorted me to a safe house, I realized that Sarah's plan had been even more elaborate than I'd thought. She hadn't just murdered Marcus for his money. She'd planned to murder me too, making it look like the grief-stricken father had died of natural causes shortly after losing his son. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. She'd killed my boy, but she wasn't going to kill me, and I was going to make sure she paid for every single thing she'd done. The war between us was just beginning. The safe house was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a nondescript complex across town. Detective Rodriguez had assured me it was secure, but I felt like a caged animal. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow outside the window could be Sarah or Diego coming to finish what they'd started. On my third day there, Detective Rodriguez brought unexpected news. "We found Diego," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "He's in a hospital in Los Angeles, barely alive." I leaned forward. "What happened to him?" "Apparent overdose, heroin mixed with fentanyl. He's been in a coma for 2 days. Something about this didn't feel right. Diego doesn't strike me as a drug user. He's not. We found no history of drug use, no paraphernalia in his hotel room, nothing to suggest he was an addict. The doctors say the dose was massive. Definitely not something a first-time user would survive by accident." The implication hit me immediately. Sarah did this to him. That's what we think. Diego knew too much, became a liability. She probably convinced him to celebrate their freedom with some champagne, slipped the drugs in his drink. I felt a chill run down my spine. Sarah wasn't just a murderer. She was systematic about eliminating anyone who could expose her. First Marcus, now Diego. I was next on her list. Is Diego going to make it? The doctors aren't optimistic, but if he does wake up, he might be able to give us testimony that could put Sarah away for life. That afternoon, I had a visitor I wasn't expecting. Emily, Sarah's sister, arrived at the safe house accompanied by Detective Rodriguez. "Emily insisted on seeing you," the detective explained. "She says she has information about Sarah that might help." Emily looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking as she sat down. She'd lost weight since I'd seen her at Marcus's house, and her usual composure was completely gone. "Austin, I need to tell you something about my sister," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something I should have told you years ago." I waited, sensing this was going to be significant. "Sarah has done this before." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward, pen poised over her notebook. "What do you mean, Emily?" I asked. "Before Marcus, Sarah was married to another man, Richard Coleman. He died of a heart attack when he was 34. My blood turned to ice. She killed her first husband too? Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. Richard was healthy, athletic, no family history of heart problems. But Sarah inherited his life insurance policy and the house they'd bought together. About $200,000 total. Why didn't you tell anyone? I suspected, but I had no proof. And Sarah threatened me. She said if I ever accused her of anything, she'd make sure something happened to my daughter. Jessica was only 12 then. I couldn't take that risk. Detective Rodriguez was writing furiously. Do you know where Richard Coleman died? Which jurisdiction? Phoenix, Arizona. About 6 years ago, Sarah moved here right after the funeral, said she needed a fresh start. We'll contact Phoenix PD immediately, Detective Rodriguez said. If there are similarities in the cases, it could establish a pattern. Emily wiped her eyes with a tissue. There's more. After Richard died, Sarah told me she'd figured out the perfect crime. She said heart attacks were impossible to investigate because everyone just assumed they were natural. She bragged about how easy it had been to collect the insurance money. The picture was becoming clearer. Sarah wasn't just a desperate woman who'd killed her husband in a moment of panic. She was a serial killer who'd perfected her method with her first victim. Emily, why are you telling us this now? I asked. Because I can't live with the guilt anymore. Marcus was a good man, and I let him die because I was too afraid to speak up. But when I heard she was targeting you too, she shook her head. I won't be responsible for another death. Is there anything else we should know? Emily hesitated, then nodded. Sarah has been planning this for a long time. She keeps detailed records, bank account numbers, life insurance policies, asset valuations. She researches her targets carefully before she marries them. You're saying Marcus was targeted from the beginning? I think so. Sarah met him at that financial planning seminar, remember? She'd been attending those for months, looking for the right victim. Someone with assets, but no family to ask questions. The coldness of it was staggering. Sarah hadn't fallen in love with Marcus and then decided to kill him for money. She'd selected him as a victim from their first meeting. There's something else, Emily continued. Sarah has been asking me questions about you for months. Your financial situation, whether you have a will, what would happen to your money if you died. I thought she was just making conversation, but now she's been planning to kill me since before she murdered Marcus. Emily nodded miserably. I think she saw Marcus as a stepping stone to get to you. Your house, your retirement savings, everything you've worked for. Keep it yours. After Emily left, Detective Rodriguez and I sat in silence for a long time. We have enough to arrest her for Richard Coleman's murder if we can find her, she finally said. But first, we need to locate her. She could be anywhere by now. Maybe not. Serial killers often stick to familiar patterns. Sarah knows this area, has connections here. My guess is she's still close by, waiting for the right opportunity to get to you. That evening, I came up with a plan. It was dangerous, probably stupid, but I was tired of hiding while Sarah plotted my death. I want to draw her out, I told Detective Rodriguez. Use myself as bait? Absolutely not. Too risky. She's going to keep trying until she succeeds. At least this way, we can control the situation. Detective Rodriguez shook her head. Austin, this woman has killed at least 2 people that we know of. She's not going to hesitate to kill a third. Then we make sure she doesn't get the chance. It took 2 days to convince her, but eventually Detective Rodriguez agreed to my plan. We would stage my return to normal life, make it look like I was no longer under police protection. Sarah would have to surface if she wanted to get to me. The trap was simple. I would return to my house, resume my normal routine, and wait for Sarah to make her move. The police would be watching from hidden positions, ready to intervene when she showed herself. Remember, Detective Rodriguez warned me, the moment you see her or anything suspicious, you signal us immediately. Don't try to be a hero. I moved back into my house on a Tuesday morning, making sure to be visible to any neighbors who might report my presence. I mowed the lawn, checked the mail, did all the normal things someone would do after being away. The first day passed without incident. So did the second. On the third night, I got a text message from an unknown number. I know you're not really alone, old man, but I'm patient. I can wait. She was watching me. The trap was working. I forwarded the message to Detective Rodriguez, who confirmed that surveillance teams had seen no one suspicious in the area. Sarah was being very careful. On the 4th night, She made her move. I was sitting in my living room, reading a book and trying to look relaxed when I heard the soft scrape of a window being opened in the back of the house. My heart started pounding, but I forced myself to remain calm and wait for the signal to move. Footsteps whispered across the kitchen floor. Sarah was inside my house. I reached for the panic button Detective Rodriguez had given me, but before I could press it, I heard her voice behind me. "Don't move, Austin, and don't even think about calling your police friends." I turned slowly. Sarah stood in the doorway to my living room, pointing a gun at me with steady hands. She looked different, thinner, harder, with cold eyes that held no trace of the woman who'd once smiled at me across Marcus's dinner table. "Hello, Sarah. You've been a very troublesome old man," she said, stepping closer. "I tried to be merciful, give you quick deaths like I gave Marcus, but you just wouldn't cooperate." "Fire. So you're going to shoot me instead?" She smiled, and it was terrifying. "Oh no, Austin. You're going to have a heart attack, just like your son, just like my dear departed husband, Richard." She pulled a syringe from her pocket with her free hand. "Digitalis, just like I gave Marcus. The autopsy will show you died of grief and stress. Very touching, really." I glanced toward the window, hoping to see some sign of the surveillance team, but there was nothing. "They can't help you," Sarah said, noticing my look. "I've been watching this house for days. I know exactly where your little police friends are hiding. They're expecting me to come through the front door or break a window. They'll never see me leave through the basement." She'd outmaneuvered us. The trap had become a real trap, and I was the one caught in it. "Any last words, Austin? Something I can tell the police about your final moments when I call them in tears about finding your body?" I looked at this woman who'd murdered my son, who was about to murder me, and felt a rage so pure it burned away my fear. "Just one thing, Sarah." "What's that?" I smiled. "You should have checked the basement more carefully." Sarah's confident expression flickered for just a moment. "What are you talking about?" "The basement window you came through," I said calmly. "The one I've been leaving unlocked for 3 days. The one with the motion sensor camera I installed last week." Her eyes widened slightly, but she kept the gun trained on me. "You're bluffing. Camera's been recording everything since you broke in. Your face, the gun, the syringe, your confession about killing Marcus and Richard, all of it streaming directly to Detective Rodriguez's phone." The color drained from Sarah's face as she realized what I was saying. She'd been so focused on avoiding the visible surveillance that she'd walked right into a trap of my own making. "Even if that's true," she said, trying to regain her composure, "you'll still be dead. The recording won't bring you back." "No, but it'll put you in prison for the rest of your life, and that's enough." Sarah's hand tightened on the gun. "Then, I guess, we both lose." "Atoya." At that moment, Detective Rodriguez's voice came through a hidden speaker I'd had installed. "Sarah Mills, this is the police. The house is surrounded. Put down your weapon and step away from Mr. Mills." Sarah spun toward the window, and I saw my chance. I lunged forward, grabbing for the hand holding the syringe. She was younger and stronger, but desperation gave me strength I didn't know I still had. We struggled, crashing into my coffee table, sending books and papers flying. The syringe skittered across the floor, out of reach. Sarah still had the gun, but in our struggle, she couldn't get a clear shot. "Let go of me, you old fool," she screamed, trying to bring the gun around. I held on, thinking of Marcus, thinking of all the pain she'd caused. "You killed my son," I gasped. "He deserved it. He was weak, just like you." The front door burst open, and Detective Rodriguez rushed in with 2 other officers, weapons drawn. "Drop the gun, now!" Sarah saw that she was finished. Her face contorted with rage as she pointed the gun at me one last time. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me." The shot was deafeningly loud in the small room. I waited for the pain, for the darkness, but it didn't come. Sarah's expression changed to one of shock, then confusion. She looked down at the spreading red stain on her shirt, then at me, then at the gun in her hand that she hadn't fired. Behind her, Detective Rodriguez was lowering her smoking weapon. "I said drop it!" Sarah crumpled to the floor, the gun clattering away. Detective Rodriguez immediately called for an ambulance while the other officers secured the scene. I sat heavily in my armchair, my hands shaking uncontrollably. It was over. Finally, It was over. Sarah survived the gunshot, though she'd never fully recover. The bullet had damaged her spine, leaving her partially paralyzed. More importantly, the hidden camera had captured everything. Her confession to murdering Marcus and Richard, her attempt to kill me, all of it. The trial was swift. With the video evidence and Emily's testimony about Richard Coleman's suspicious death, Sarah was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Diego woke up from his coma 2 weeks after Sarah's arrest. His testimony confirmed what we'd suspected. Sarah had drugged him when he became nervous about their situation. He'd started asking too many questions about what would happen if the police caught them, and Sarah had decided he was a liability. Diego received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation. 5 years for accessory to fraud. He'd been a fool, but not a killer. The hardest part was going through Marcus's belongings. Sarah had left his personal items untouched, probably planning to sell them later. I found photo albums from his childhood, awards from school, the watch I'd given him for his 18th birthday. In his desk drawer, I discovered something that broke my heart all over again, a Father's Day card he'd bought but never had the chance to give me. Inside he'd written, "Dad, I know I don't say it enough, but thank you for always being there for me. I hope someday I can be half the man you are." I sat in his empty house and cried for hours. But there was also something healing about finally knowing the truth. Marcus hadn't died because of stress or overwork or genetics. He'd died because he discovered his wife was stealing from him and had tried to protect both of us from her. He died as the good, brave man I'd raised him to be. 6 months after the trial, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I sold my house and Marcus's house, liquidated most of my assets, and established a foundation in Marcus's name. The Marcus Mills Foundation provides financial assistance and legal support to families who've lost loved ones under suspicious circumstances but lack the resources to pursue justice. We help pay for private investigators, expert witnesses, legal fees, all the things that can make the difference between a case being solved and a murderer going free. Emily was the first person I hired. Her guilt over not speaking up about Richard Coleman had been eating her alive, and she threw herself into the work with the passion of someone seeking redemption. She turned out to have a gift for identifying patterns in suspicious deaths, connecting dots that others missed. Detective Rodriguez retired from the force and joined us as our chief investigator. "I spent 30 years putting away criminals after they'd already hurt people," she told me. "I'd rather spend my remaining years preventing them from hurting anyone else." We've helped solve 12 suspicious deaths in the past 3 years. 12 families who might never have gotten justice. 12 killers who thought they were smart enough to get away with murder. The work doesn't bring Marcus back. Nothing can do that. But it gives meaning to his death, turns his tragedy into something that helps others. I think he would approve. I still visit his grave every Sunday, still talk to him about what we're doing with the foundation. Sometimes I imagine I can hear him encouraging me to keep going, to help one more family, solve one more case. Sarah writes to me sometimes from prison, rambling letters full of self-pity and blame, claiming she was the real victim, that Marcus had driven her to desperation with his controlling behavior. I read the first few, then started throwing them away unopened. She still doesn't understand what she did wrong, still sees herself as justified. That's fine. She can spend the rest of her life in a 6x8 cell, believing whatever helps her sleep at night. The important thing is that she can never hurt anyone else. Last month, we received a call from a woman in Oregon whose husband had died suddenly of a heart attack. The circumstances sounded familiar. A young, healthy man, a wife who'd been acting strangely before his death, financial irregularities that didn't add up. Emily and I flew out to meet with her. As we sat in her living room, looking at bank statements and insurance policies that told a story I'd seen before, I felt that familiar surge of purpose. "We're going to help you find the truth," I told her, "whatever it takes." She started crying, not just from grief, but from relief. Someone finally believed her suspicions. Someone was going to fight for her husband the way I'd fought for Marcus. This is my life now. Not the retirement I'd planned, not the golden years I'd imagined spending with my son and maybe someday grandchildren. But it's a good life, a meaningful life. Marcus died trying to protect me from his wife's greed. Now I spend my days protecting others from people like her. It's not the legacy either of us would have chosen, but it's the one we ended up with. And in a strange way, it feels like Marcus and I are still working together, still taking care of each other, just like we always did. That's enough. That has to be enough.